Money Majors, Episode 11. Welcome to Money Majors, your podcast for young entrepreneurs by young entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Posey.
And I'm Garrett McNamara.
And we're going to go through the latest news on young and student entrepreneurs the world over. How are you, Garrett?
I'm doing great.
That's fantastic, as usual. I always expect you to say something else other than I'm great.
One of these days I'll be like, everything stinks!
Everything stinks. Or I just made $1 million. Or
then I'd be really great, yeah.
Saved a ton of money on my insurance by switching. No. So first off, last night I attended an interesting get-together of some groups of students at Mason, and it's a group called Startup Mason, and it's led by a PhD student named David Miller, and he's looking to bring together some of the entrepreneurial spirit at Mason and get some of these students together who have ideas and help them bring their ideas to fruition, and by doing so, hopefully to show the university that we do have an entrepreneurial spirit at Mason, and we do have legitimate reasons for building a greater entrepreneurial presence at Mason. There were some very interesting people there that I met. There was a great guy next to me who came up with a business idea to build a home bar, and essentially he said that when he was building his own home bar, he found all these different things he had to buy from different vendors, different SKUs across the board. And he thought, why can't I just bring this together in a single package? And you just buy the package. And some of us kind of facetiously said, oh, it sounds like a bar in a box. And so that was a really cool idea. Another lady there she came from another university where she majored in dance. And so she's really into dance. And so now she wants to hopefully build a dance studio here. A guy to my left has a business where he was promoting and selling miniature golf in the Ukraine. So now he has a website that is actually selling golf equipment. So just a good mix of students. It was very interesting. It was all very positive. David went over a lot of different interesting ideas and tips from places like the Foundry, places like University of Utah, brought up books like The Lean Startup, and everything. What I didn't hear, and maybe it's a first meeting, so I hope that later on they will talk more about more critical aspects of the business. Because if you recall, you and I have discussed before in the past, and we've come across folks from various places who say that what entrepreneurs don't have enough of these days, it's someone saying, the hard reality is saying, you need to think a little harder about that. Or you need to, that may not be a good idea. Think more critically about it. So this was a completely positive meeting. No negatives. Nobody was told no, or nobody was told maybe. But that's fine. That's good. So it's good that we have this at Mason. Very interesting stuff.
It'll be interesting to follow them as well over the year to see what happens if they establish a foothold and how everything goes.
Yeah, I mean, David's research, he only talked to me a little bit about what it is that he's working on his PhD about, but I got the impression that he's very interested in why companies take off. What was it about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook what gave him that insight, that click to drop out of college and found a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar business? What is it about people? What dynamics are there to people who make businesses and make them suddenly succeed? And in more general terms, why do they drop out of college to go form this business? What was it about that situation? So that would be very interesting to read.
Very cool. Yeah, and thank you for going. I wanted to make it, but I was tied up in meetings, so I couldn't make it out to that. But I hope to go to some of their other events. So awesome.
Yeah, we'll see. He's going to have throughout the entire semester. The students are going to come up with ideas, and they're going to go through step by step of developing those ideas and working with each other to bring those ideas to fruition by the end of the semester. It was kind of run like a class, which you expect nothing less from a professor, but it was very interesting. So I'm looking forward to see what they're doing. Want to go? Why don't you start off? What's in the news, Garrett?
Cool. We got a lot of stuff today. First article is from The Economist, and it's called "Dear Entrepreneur, Stop Dreaming and Launch That Business." They say that as common wisdom has it, great companies are built by business leaders who out-innovate the competition. But instead, the truth is that groundbreaking businesses more often come from entrepreneurs who are able to out-execute everyone in their space, which means getting products out there and growing a loyal customer base, not engineering a product until it's supposedly perfect. So if you wait for perfect, you're never going to launch. Microsoft is a great example of a company that succeeded by execution. They've rarely been first to market with any of their products, but they've successfully introduced them, figured out how to improve them, and repeated the process again and again. And this approach puts you in the Fortune 500.
Yeah, that,
So,
that's
yeah.
that's a very interesting point. I have a story about that actually. I represented for I worked with a car company, a really great car company, I might add, and the founder of the company, he came from the bioengineering world, so he's very much an engineer, very much a software technology kind of guy, and he believed the idea was to create the first car, sell that first car, and then do revisions and come out with version 2.0, 3.0, 3.5, etc. And they brought on a business person, and the business person said, "No, we can't do that. We need to instead, sell the first car needs to be the best car that we can produce, that we can make significant money on, and we don't have to constantly do revisions." So they spend a lot of time, building that first car instead of releasing that first car, seeing what worked and what didn't work, and releasing another one.
Well, those are totally two different schools of thought. And did it work out for them?
No,
Okay.
sadly, much to my despair, it did not work out. But we see that with all sorts of products. I mean, Microsoft is a great example.
Especially with software.
Yeah, Windows Phone started off not so great, but it seems to be getting better and better and better as they
Hmm.
go along.
Right. Like the idea of constant revisions versus, waiting forever. So the rest of the article is saying that entrepreneurs believe so fervently in the myth that they need to be first to market with a never before seen innovation, and that's ingrained in them by business schools. And this is a myth fed by public perception of groundbreaking companies as having come out of nowhere to rock the world. But the truth is, companies like Facebook rarely are the first. If we remember, MySpace and Friendster were there before. Facebook just did social networking better than anyone else. Google was not the first search engine, but it advanced the search experience so dramatically that we're all, we're all now using it. So the takeaway from this is launch your company even if your concept is similar to someone else's idea and figure how you will change the business model and just do it better. So
Great stuff.
that's great because I'm working on something myself which I found out is not entirely unique. And I was wondering whether or not to continue to pursue it. And I believe that, yeah, we could do it better. So I'm going to go ahead and press through with it. So next article is from Portfolio.com, and it's entitled "An Entrepreneurial Vision for Young CEOs." And this is about Matt Wilson with Under30CEO.com, and we've pulled a lot of content from there, and they're a great resource. So
We love them.
yeah, we try to stay up with what they're doing. Matt Wilson started to act on his entrepreneurial aspirations when he was still in college and everyone else was trying to figure out what to major in. He was a business management student in Rhode Island, and he founded the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, codenamed CEO, a network of fellow college students who shared his disdain for working for a monolithic corporation, and that had a lasting effect. Now, freshmen in the entrepreneur program at that school are required to do pitches. So he did have a lasting effect there. And what he did with Under 30 CEO was to recreate that and try to relink with everyone who was in that original group in college. And he did it during hard times. His mom told him that they were losing their home. They had a nice home, and they had to sell everything and downsize to a small apartment. He had to rush out and do job searches just to make ends meet. He hired on with a commercial landscaping crew to drive an 18-foot trailer and didn't learn until later that he was going to be doing a lot of ditch digging as well. So he was digging ditches 12 hours a day, working on Under30CEO.com at night. And he said, yeah, it was crazy, just being tired, and it was simultaneously the most miserable and gratifying time of his life. He presented a number of challenges in this article. Number two was to build a professional website with no programming experience. Matt Wilson has a partner, And they both were working on this, and neither of them had professional web development experience, and they were also broke. They couldn't find anyone who was, an additional partner who was willing to work for equity. They tried elance.com, and they, for $175, found a web designer overseas. Said they got nowhere there because there was a language barrier. The other individual didn't speak English, so they didn't get anything done. And finally, they were able to find a friend who was desperate enough to make website changes in exchange for beer and a lifetime of client referrals. So,
I would love a lifetime of referrals. That's
and
at
beer.
equity, yeah.
Um, yeah, Matt and his co-founder were friends since grade school. They kept each other grounded. And once the site was live, he said that the energy, the feedback fed him and got him more and more inspired. At first he was just working at night, and the goal for Under 30 CEO was for him to make enough money to quit that primary job during the day doing hard labor. And he said he decided to live life like others won't for a few years so that he could live life like others couldn't for the rest of his life. So,
Always interesting. The initial offices, one of the first offices of Facebook, they hired a graffiti artist to paint murals inside the lobby.
I want that here in my apartment. But anyway, go ahead.
They got the guy to accept equity in exchange for money for the murals, and the one of the articles I read about the Facebook IPO, which we'll get to later, that by accepting the equity from an early company in exchange for an exchange of money, when the IPO debuts, this guy's going to have a couple hundred million. So
That's awesome. And he's known as the Facebook graffiti artist, so he's also got that in
that's
his
yeah.
portfolio. Similar situation, didn't that happen with the original cook at Google, who started when Google was like 30 employees or something like that, and it was obscure, and he just signed on, I think, at whatever salary they were willing to give, which probably wasn't all too impressive
Yeah.
because they're, a startup without a lot of cash. And I think he also had options, so he became like a millionaire just by coming on his cooking staff or something. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, well, another great story on that. And then we'll move on. Is that the when Levi Strauss went public, the guy in the mailroom became a millionaire overnight because employees of the company they would every year they would give him a little stock here, a little stock there, and so they went public. Mailroom guy became an instant multimillionaire. So there's always benefits to taking. I think the moral of this story is there's always benefits to, you know, when you have a young startup, don't just say no just because they can't pay, because any young startup could be the next Facebook of tomorrow, the next Google of tomorrow. Find ways that you can work with them, get some equity out of them, get some referral business out of them, because you never know where that might take you.
Right, right. So yeah, I mean, if you believe in the future of the startup, take that equity. But if you don't, then obviously, I guess you shouldn't take it. So next article is about Bill Gates, and it's called "Searching for the Next Bill Gates: Young Entrepreneurs Meet Microsoft's Founder." And it's from dailydisruption.com. And Bill Gates was on hand for the introduction of the inaugural recipients of the Imagine Cup grants, which is a 3-year, $3 million competitive grant program for student technology and social entrepreneurs. The winners were 4 student teams from Ecuador, Croatia, Jordan, and the U.S., who are using technologies such as Kinect, Windows Phone, and Bing Maps to address health, accessibility, and education issues. These winning teams now take on projects that are featured in the Imagine Cup competition last summer, and they're going to go on to form companies and nonprofits with the support of Microsoft in the forms of cash, software, and connection to non-government organizations, partners, and business partners. So Microsoft sees this opportunity divide emerging, where the opportunity divide, in their words, is a gap between those who have access to skills and opportunities to be successful and those who do not. And they say that this problem is particularly acute for young people because the world is more globally competitive, diverse, and grounded in
Hmm.
technology than ever before. And while some people are thriving, those on the wrong side of the digital divide lack the skills, education, and experience or connection to employment opportunities that are required to succeed. Boom.
Keep it rolling.
Definitely. So that was pretty interesting. Bill Gates met these individuals in Davos, which we covered, I believe, last episode,
He
at
also,
least briefly. Briefly.
yeah, he also mentioned in that article. Well, I found it funny in the article that everyone was using Microsoft products, and so it was definitely a competition to by Microsoft using Microsoft products.
Well, that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're pitching in all the money, I would expect them to be
Yeah.
like, "Well, here's your array of tools. Please use them."
Yeah, I think people like Google do this. A lot of major companies. I mean, the duct tape company, do something with duct tape and we'll give you money.
Definitely. Next article is called "Student Invention First to Secure Seed Money from New UBC Entrepreneurship Fund."
Yeah, this was really an interesting article that I kind of tracked down. Basically, the kind of a joint Sauder School of Business and UBC engineering undergraduates at the University of British Columbia were the first to secure some seed money from kind of a new type of entrepreneurial fund. The entrepreneurial is just called Entrepreneurship at UBC Seed Accelerator, which was an investment fund created in partnership between UBC alumni, Province of British Columbia, and through the British Columbia Innovation Council. And its key is to support early stage companies from the UBC community. So we've seen this before at other universities that I won't mention that we've talked endlessly on every single show about, but Babson. So seed money help university students who have creative ideas start up. And this particular company, AOS Biomedical, won the competition, and their product is really, really neat. It's called Target Tape, and Target Tape is a medical adhesive tape developed to allow doctors to make more precise incisions during surgery. The tape is inscribed with locational markings that will show up on medical imaging like x-rays, and it's applied to the patient's skin over an area of interest. But when the tape is removed, it leaves behind an ink imprint of the locational markings. So it allows doctors to be much more accurate in matching up the images with the patient's skin. And I thought that's a really bright idea because it's simple and it seems like it'd be something very cheap to develop and sell, but it has a very, very practical use for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you see that they brought together students from the School of Business and the School of Engineering. And I find this problem myself at George Mason University is that we have engineering students who are very, very bright, but they lack they tend to lack that entrepreneurial spirit or that creative
Or getting a product to market sort of thing. Like great with a product, but not with getting it to people.
They more like they know that they could build, for example, they know they could build a robot, but they don't know how to take that robot and turn it into something else. Meaning they're very technically astute. And I think we've seen this with a lot of engineering students is we see them who have and science students, they have a very good idea and they have a very good prowess in the mathematical and engineering skill set, but then to take that and then apply what they know to creative business ideas is a little different. And they're not used to thinking abstractly like that from a marketing or a business's perspective. So it's really interesting that I found that UBC is bringing business students and entrepreneur students together. So AOS Biomedical emerged from this whole UBC's new venture design course, which is a collaborative entrepreneurial course, and it has partners from business, engineering. So very, very interesting idea. I thought you know some doctors, Garrett, and I know some doctors, and I think this will all be very interesting and useful for all of them.
Should get our hands on some. Play around with it. I wonder how permanent the ink is. Probably will stay on for like 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, the concept of correct surgical site is a huge deal. We're always reading in the news. Not always, but it's a big deal when you read around the news that doctors cut off the wrong leg.
Totally. It happens.
Yeah, I mean, well, I had surgery for carpal tunnel. And so when the doctor came in, he came in before the surgery, he looked at my arm, and he said, "Okay, we're doing the right arm, correct?" Yeah. Compared that to the record, verified that with me. He drew some stuff on my arm, and then he signed it. And then he signed it, and that was the one they did.
A lot of times someone will be doing prep, and they'll read or misread a chart and direct the doctor to do the wrong thing. So they'll prep surgery and expose like a right knee when that's the wrong knee. And yeah, the doctor just goes to town on whatever they thought was supposed to be the right area.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And this will save lives. It will save costs. It'll save time. And it reminded me also of a company I'm looking to work with now that is going to take something. I can't really get into what it is, but it's essentially doctors and radiologists have a task that they have to do, and that task costs several $1,000s usually per patient. And the time to complete that task is sometimes a week. And so a technology company came along, it was a very small startup, came along and invented a way to cut out that middle band of a couple of grand extra and cut down from a week to a day a particular task that doctors have to complete. So, small things, saving money, and all that. So, what do we got next here, Garrett? Well, the next that I have, at least, is I found an interesting article from a vending machine magazine,
Hmm.
which I kind of made me chuckle a little
Talking
bit.
about NAMA, which is the National Automatic Merchandising Association. I didn't know what it was, so I had to look it up.
Who
And
knew? Yeah, who
yeah,
knew that we
it's
had this?
well, people in the trade, because it's a national trade association of food and refreshment vending, coffee service, and food service management industries, including on-site commissary, catering, and mobile. So all
Yeah,
those vending machines and all that sort of stuff, probably all owned by NAMA merchants and customers.
yeah. Well, this is from Vending Market Watch, which I kind of want to get my hands on this magazine just to see the kind of things they talk about in the industry of vending machines. But they did a study. They came across a study that essentially the vending and refreshment services business still remains to be a highly entrepreneurial industry, but that we're going to see a great bit of change in ownership over the next decade. According to a recent study survey conducted by Automatic Merchandiser on the succession and retirement plans of people who run vending machine businesses, about 70% of the leadership based on this survey are over 50 years or older, meaning in the next few decades, a whole new generation of owners will emerge for the vending machine business, and that new generation is going to be better educated and more tech savvy. We see a lot of the vending machines now are getting a little more high tech, where we're replacing the old dollars and change machines with card swipe machines. Well, the card swipe machines are connected to an internet network, and when I buy a Coke, the computer knows -1 Coke. And so when it gets to a low stock, it can send a message out to the main hub to let the vending machine company know machines 3, 4, 7, and 12 are running low. So they can roll a truck rather than sending someone out there to
To keep surveying and yeah,
yeah,
polling
so
like are you low on this? Are you low on that? That's great.
yeah, so it keeps electronically, but we face this problem at Mason. There are certain advantages and disadvantages of that system. Swiping a credit card through a vending machine costs extra because you have to pay the transaction fee.
Hmm.
The merchant does, not us.
Hmm.
So they lose a little bit of money. So they would prefer us to use dollars and change. So there's a little bit of a battle going on between the old school of I don't want to pay the credit card fee versus the younger folks who are saying, but it saves us money in the long run because we can send less people and spend less time looking at the machines, and young people are carrying plastic versus
Right. And I
dollars
was
and
going to
change.
say, now does the trade-off also give you more customers? Like, are more of your customers either buying more or are you getting more customers because people don't like to carry cash or don't like to carry small bills and change or whatever you use for the vending machine, and maybe you're getting more people out of this. So yeah, you're paying these Visa, you're paying these fees, but you could be selling more product.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and as well, the survey indicated that close to a third of the today's owners, have 30 or more years in business. So as they retire, that younger generation is going to be coming up, and only 21% of those surveys say they will sell the business to a family member. Half say they will sell the business to a non-family member, and nearly a third are uncertain. So as your vending machine people are retiring and moving on, who's going to take that over? And we've seen in the past vending and kiosks are a kind of a young person's entrepreneurial put your foot in the door, selling everything from DVDs to key cutting to things for cell phones and everything else. So I thought that was great, and I'd never heard of that trade association. So as always, we learn something new every podcast.
NAMA. So next, this article entitled "Are We Generations Apart?" And it talks about three different generations, one of which is the baby boomers, which are born from 1946 and 1964, ages 48 to 66 currently. Generation X, 1965 to 1983, are ages 29 to 47. And Gen Y, born in 84 to 93, and their ages 19 to 28 right now. And this article cites another article from '05 in FDU magazine called FDU Magazine Online, and it includes a chart that summarizes differences in these generations from a workplace perspective. A couple of components from the chart that we'll pull out that are relevant are communications. Baby boomers prefer in-person communications. Gen Y prefers direct, immediate, and sorry, whoa, I'm messing all this up. Okay, let's start over. Communications. Baby boomers prefer in-person. Gen X prefer direct and immediate, and Gen Y prefer email and voicemail. In terms of interactive style, baby boomers are team players and they love to have meetings. Gen X is the entrepreneur and Gen Y is participative. So, teams.
Yeah, very very different styles of team. Baby boomers love to have those meetings, love to have those big collaborative things. Gen Xers are more entrepreneurial based, where it's they're the leaders and they make things happen. Whereas the Gen Y kind of is more of a participative, where everyone comes together and participates as a group to produce something as a whole. So yeah, it's different ways of looking at things. Um, we There was an article that we almost covered that discussed how the Generation Y is more independent in the things that they do. They date less, they get married less, they're very tech savvy, and the ways of communicating and building relationships are less direct and less personal than Generation Xers and the baby boomers. When we see that every day.
Definitely. Well, furthermore in this article, baby boomer customers seem to return phone calls more readily, while Gen X and Gen Y customers are more likely to answer an email. Gen Xers use text messages in their personal communications, which we just talked about, and may use them in business as well. And the bottom line is don't expect to be able to use the same method to reach and interact with all your customers and colleagues and clients. If a prospect isn't returning a phone call, try an email or vice versa. And once you know that preference, use it to build the relationship. So find out what they like. There's no
Mm-hmm.
one solution for everyone.
And it's good, helpful not just for baby boomers to know how Generation Y folks communicate, but for Generation Y entrepreneurs, which you are considered one. I'm Gen X, you're Gen Y, but how we should know how are baby boomers, how do they prefer
Hmm.
to communicate and do these types of things. So next, I guess let's address the elephant in the room.
Totally. I'm
About
happy
to
for
make
this.
Sorry.
I'm happy for this. This is cool. This is
Absolutely.
something that's been on my mind all week. Facebook and their IPO. They did it on Wednesday, and I've tried to stay current on what's going on. So we pulled out three articles, specifically just on Facebook, and the first is real quick. It was from Mashable, and it's called "The 10 Giant Things Less Valuable Than Facebook," and I'm going to talk about a few of them. Facebook is worth more with the $100 billion estimate of value than the entire world's coffee industry.
Oh, amazing.
And we know how crucial the coffee industry is. The entire Gulf War, 50 nuclear submarines, and 2.5 Olympic Games because the one in Beijing cost $40 billion to do.
Yep, it's also valued. It's more valuable than.
And sorry,
Um,
those were all separate. Those are separate categories, not all those combined. But yeah,
well, I looked up a number before we got on, and Facebook is worth more than the entire 2009 campaign for president. All candidates, both parties, everything included. The whole election, the whole United States election. I mean, all those people, senators, congressmen, president, all combined, is pales in comparison to Facebook.
totally. And even the GDP of some smaller countries is less than the value of Facebook, so they could be their own country. Next article is Mark Zuckerberg's Generation Y IPO, and we found this to be a little bit of a critical article, and we don't know why, but whatever. And it just talks about this new the IPO in the new age and how it's different than previous IPOs for Google and everything else. So
That and not just how the IPO is different, but how the founder is interacting with the company in the face of an IPO. And we look at the past at how um, Larry and Sergey of Google, they stepped aside when they did their IPO and let a more business-oriented person take over the helm in Eric Schmidt. We saw with Jerry Yang of Yahoo stepped aside, let a more business-oriented person take over. Whereas Mark Zuckerberg has held on firmly to the grasp of leadership of Facebook, and to a large extent, he's resisted going public. And he's resisted that push to get out of the way, as we typically tend to see.
even in year one, he had some offers for like $10 million. He pushed those back. He's been pushing back offers through the entire existence of Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, well, Yahoo offered 900 million,
Hmm.
and Google offered 2 billion. So, yeah, I mean, it comes and it goes. But this article seemed a little bitter,
Terrible.
a little bitter, and it seemed that the 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 old days of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, they didn't have loan money.
Yeah, they were not funded by venture capital.
Not funded by VCs, they didn't have loans. They actually had to build a product, sell the product, prove the viability of the product, get customers. Then people said, okay, we'll give you a little money.
And with that money, they paid for staff and they reinvested.
Yeah, same thing when you look at Google. Google is very VC oriented. And they got a venture capitalist on board, and they started to sell a product kind of early on in the program. Facebook, on the other hand, was essentially kind of pulled back. It's like, don't worry about a profit just yet. Just create the business, get the business moving. We'll worry about a profit later. And the article, or excuse me, the author of the article was a little critical in these Generation Y people as being a little too handled with kid gloves almost. There's a mentality of you're a Generation Y. Well, as long as you come up with something cool, it's okay. You don't have to make a profit. You can just take your time. It's okay. We'll just keep shoveling money at you and everything's fine. No rush to make a profit. No rush to sell a product. So, and that vision, that process is very different from the old IPOs.
I think a lot of that follows Facebook, that they're all like, oh, could this be the next Facebook? Yeah, let's dump money into it and hope.
Yeah,
That would
and
make
hope.
just astronomical amounts of cash. So I think a lot of that is following the, just the Facebook anomaly. So just the hopefuls. But the article says today a new company has to be judged hot. It's got to generate buzz on Twitter. It's got to get users on its cheap website, and that provides to some tired venture capitalists somewhere that there's a real business here. A Gen Xer would likely have bowed to the pressure of the smart money VCs who told them to step aside.
Like Jerry Yang.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the article says that it's, quote, common knowledge that computer lab rats step aside, and I think that's a little harsh. I wonder if I could, we could like find this guy and talk to him. Yeah, it's a really harsh article. A Gen Xer would have gone public a long time ago. Zuckerberg was obviously pushing this back for a while. To the article author, an IPO is a privilege, not a burden. He's asking, is it so hard to hold quarterly conference calls with analysts? Is it difficult to answer questions? Does it really change the internal culture that much?
Well, Facebook is I think, is a very different company than a lot of hot companies right now. People, 3 years ago, I got on Facebook 6 years ago when it first debuted. I was one of the first users, and at first it was not many people were on it, but suddenly it hockey stick took off, and everyone was dying to get on Facebook. Now we have everyone's dying to work for Facebook. They're leaving companies like Google and going to work for Facebook because it's the hot new company. People are signing up to play Zynga games on Facebook every day. People are constantly looking to invest in Facebook, make apps for Facebook. It's the hot, exciting new place to be. And so it's it. That's what it is. And so Zucks is you can give him a little bit of leeway, I guess, in that, well, he may be doing it much different than people of the past, but at the same time, he's got a very, very hot product that people are knocking down his door to get on board with.
Absolutely. And the article is saying that an IPO is a step in the road. It's like moving out of your parents' basement, which, yeah. And
We
lastly,
know some folks that could do that.
baby boomers like Jobs and Gates would have been horrified at the idea that you don't try to make money right away. Quote, this is a business, right? So why wouldn't you try to make money right away? Maybe a Gen Xer would have, been talked into it by a VC.
Sure. Yeah.
So this will be an interesting company to continue to follow just to see how they do things. And, they're going to set trends.
How can we miss it? I mean, you
Arguably,
and I are both on Facebook regrettably, I love Google Plus, but none of my friends are on Google Plus. So I have to stay on Facebook and continue using Facebook,
I'm sorry, John.
even though I don't want to use Facebook. But every young person under 18 doesn't care. My friends are on Facebook, that's where I got to be.
Right.
Across the world over. So, moving along, the Crunchies were given out, Garrett. I thought that was kind of interesting. Dropbox won the award for the best overall startup. You like that company,
They did,
right?
yeah. I've been following Drew Houston a bit, but yeah, the awards were given out in San Francisco. Jack Dorsey, the founder of the year and leader of Twitter, won the biggest social impact, and for his microblogging service online that could aid in revolutions. And again, yeah, big congrats to Dropbox winning the best overall startups. The two founders demonstrated the power of the freemium model, and they had the guts to turn down a 9-figure acquisition bid. Yeah.
Which this was just a quick article to mention because, and you can go through and read in the show notes some of the other awards. But Siri Technology Achievement, Google Plus. Best social application.
Mm-hmm.
So
best tech achievement, Siri. Yeah, sorry, we just talked about that. Best mobile app, Evernote. Best bootstrap startup, Imager. Best time sync, Words with Friends, and best new startup of 2011 is Pinterest.
Yeah, a lot of these little young entrepreneur type groups. Well, that wraps up episode 11 in pretty good time. As always, love us, hate us, want to contribute something, want to let us know that we did something right, wrong, give us a business that we can talk about, let us know. Send us an email at podcast@moneymajors.net. Follow us on Twitter @moneymajors. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/moneymajors. And last but not least, where you'll find all of our show notes and other little extra tidbits for the show at our website, www.moneymajors.net. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.
Money, 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 all I ever hear these days. Every song that the DJ plays, talking of a similar situation. Ain't got none and got to get some. Gotta have more than I had before. Gotta have more than the man next door. Every day I gotta make some more, some more, some more. Well, give me a break, yeah. Or let me take some time out. Gotta frisk my mind out.